Hi everybody, Colette Savage is here. I'm going to be doing a pastel demonstration tonight, which is going to be shown for the Penfield Art Association. The demonstration is going to be on a photo I've taken a few years ago during the summer. It's here on my iPad. It's a great scene. I drive by here all the time on my way to work, and I'm always awestruck by it. Right now it's fall, and of course this is a summer scene. I hope to go back to photograph it again when I have something I can use to photograph. But that's what we're going to work on tonight. I will periodically turn the camera so that you can see the image on my iPad, and you can see what it looks like. So here are my pastels. My pastels are a wide variety of brands and colors. And despite the fact that I have so many, it's not nearly as many pastel artists that I've seen, and I could probably honestly use more. And this is the setup I have here at home in my home studio. And I also have a kit that I take with me for plein air painting. I have tons and tons of pastels that I loan out to students wherever I happen to be teaching a class. And I have several other plein air kits. Usually the others are fairly small. But you know, I've got one for every occasion. So let me just show you now what we're doing here. This is my setup. This room used to be my living room. I've converted it into a studio. My easel is just a simple tabletop easel. And I have a piece of glass on the tray there just to give it a little extra stability. I have a lot of different lights, incandescent as well as daylight corrected, just a whole bunch of different things, because I figured if I throw enough different kinds of light in there, then I should be able to come up with something that's relatively close to what I would see outside. I prefer to work outdoors when I can. I'm a plein air artist, and that's like my greatest joy in the whole world. I just love to go outside to paint. Of course, tonight we can't do that, but this is what we're going to do. I'm going to try and do a painting for you. I don't know how it's going to turn out. Honestly, the technology has been giving me a little bit of grief, but it's also been an incredible learning experience. Oops. So, sorry about that. I know I'm going to hit this tripod more than once, but we'll try to do the best we can here with this. I want to talk to you a little bit about the paper that I use. The paper is it's made by a company called UArt. Let me kind of zoom in a little bit. It's very, very coarse. It's not like your run-of-the-mill drawing papers. Very tough, and it holds a whole bunch of layers of pastels, which I really love. It has a sandy surface, and it's made by, I think I said, the UArt company. UArt is the name of the paper. It comes in a variety of different coarsenesses, and I do like that a lot too, because some things are better for different scenes than others. Some of them are fairly smooth. This paper is rough. This is, I think, it's a 240 or 3. I don't remember, 3 something. And one of my favorites is like a 400 or 500. The smaller the number, the rougher the paper. And 800 is fairly smooth. It's still really rough, but it's smooth compared to other kinds of pastel papers. So I want to get started as soon as possible here, but I want to talk to you a little bit about some things that would make your life a little easier here as a pastel artist. This is something called gloves in a bottle. It's cool stuff. It looks like a lotion. It is not. Well, it kind of is. But what its main purpose is to keep your hands from getting so dirty that you can't wash them. Because I do pastel all the time, I don't use any other medium. My skin gets really dried out, and that's just the nature of pastel. So I put like a pea-sized drop on my fingertips, and then I'll rub it in to my fingertips. I'm right-handed, so that's the one that's going to get the most of it. And just rub it in. It'll dry in just a matter of seconds, and it just makes it's so much easier to clean up when you have this stuff. Otherwise, the pastel gets right down into the cracks in my fingers, and it becomes almost impossible to get it out. So here we go. I think what I'm going to do first with this is an underpainting. I like doing underpaintings. I do them a lot. And in this case, I'm going to be doing a black underpainting. The black that I'm going to put down here is going to enrich the dark areas and make them that much darker. Now, as you look at the photo, there it is, that I'm using here, there's not a lot of dark area. There's a lot of green and a lot of blue. I mean, really, when you get right down to it, it's all blue and green. But the thing that's really important is the value. Now, I could use virtually any color I wanted to in those different areas, those different values. I can use any color as long as it's the same value. So let that sink in for a minute. That is really one of the most important things about painting, as far as I know anyhow. And to me, that's probably the thing that makes my paintings work. If they don't work, that's generally the reason why. So let's get going here. This is, I think it's a Terry Ludwig. I'm not sure of the color. I think it's black. I'm not really sure. But I'm just going to throw it in to the areas where I see the darkest darks. Right under this tree, there's a lot of dark areas. A lot of it is not really well defined. You know, it's leafy. It's kind of loose. But I can't do anything about that right now. I just want to make an area that's really dark. And there's some darker areas up through the center, so I'm going to put it there too. You might have noticed some of the dust kind of falling off of here. I have this upright for a reason. I can't really work flat, not well anyhow, because the dust can pile up, and that becomes an issue for me. I also want to get some dark value here in this very distant tree line that goes across the page. A lot of the areas underneath those trees are pretty dark, and there's a lot of darks. I can't even say a lot. There's some darks, some shadowy areas in these bushes, and I think some of these are actually trees. They're just really far away and it's hard to tell, so I'm just going to throw some of that dark in there too. Down here in the foreground, there's an area that's got a little bit darker area, and these are just like, I don't know, grapevines or some sort of a shrubbery, and I will put some of this dark in there. Putting the dark in first makes it a lot easier for me to apply layers of color on top in lighter values. So I start at the paper, the bottom, I guess, the bottom layer, with the darkest darks I can get, and then I build up to lighter values. So I guess in some ways that's kind of similar to, or at least in my understanding, is similar to oil painting. I'm not an oil painter. I most definitely am never going to pretend that I am. There we go. I was looking for something here. This is alcohol. I'm going to use alcohol to liquefy that pastel I just put on the paper. This is cheap alcohol. This is, I think it's from Walmart, probably. 50% isopropyl. Do not use the higher ones. Save those for when you have to disinfect something. 50% is great. The ones that have a higher percentage of alcohol dry too rapidly and become difficult to handle. Now I have a little bit here in a plastic container, and I've applied it to my brush, and I'm dripping already. And I'm just gonna apply the alcohol to the areas of pastel. What this is going to do for me is it's going to kind of loosen it up a little bit. You can see I'm not really very particular at this point, but it also fixes the pastel, because black is one of those things that does move. It's going to transfer to a lot of other sticks, and by doing this, it prevents that. It fixes that black pastel in place. It becomes like any other painting medium, I believe. So it's similar to watercolor, oils, acrylics, you know, more like a wet medium. Oh, there we go. I could take this, now this brush is pretty saturated with this stuff, and I can just use it like an actual wet paint. It looks kind of like watercolor at this point. It's obviously not. But, you know, pastels use the same pigments that other mediums use the same, there we go, throw some of that in there. The one thing I did want to say is the pigments that are used in pastel are the same as you would find in other painting mediums. And for that reason, we take precautions with pastel to not blow the dust off. If I find that I'm getting too much dust on the paper, I'll tap it and knock it off. So right at the moment, this has to dry, so I'm going to pause the camera for a second, and I'll be right back. Okay, and we're back. It took about, I don't know, maybe 5 minutes to let this dry. It's not completely dry, but it's pretty close. It's close enough so that I can get working on this. I really like this scene a lot, so I hope I can do it justice. If I can't, I'll just do it again. The neat thing with this paper is it's very tough paper, and you can apply pastel over on it several different times. If I do a dog of a painting, and I do, I can brush out the pastel dust on the surface and just start over again. The paper, I've done up to 3 paintings on one piece of paper in the hopes of finally doing something good. A lot of times I do, sometimes I really don't, but it's probably the fault of the paper. It couldn't possibly be me. Right, okay, so now we're going to start working on this particular painting. I just want you to know that because I've applied alcohol to this, it's really fixed the black to the paper. So you can see, even over here where it's really dark, it's really not coming off on my finger. And that's great because I'm going to go over it with a bunch of color, and I want some of those rich, dark colors to show through. I want that black to be seen. Because if I look at that photo again, I see those dark values in the shadow areas, and they really do appear black, particularly under the tree. So I want to try to replicate that. I think that as far as my students are concerned, one of the issues I see is some timid painters who don't want to get that dark. They're just like, oh geez, you know, it doesn't seem right. But in reality, it is. It's the right thing to do. Now this stick that I have is a lovely sky blue. And this is a great place for me to start by applying this color. I don't know if you noticed it when I came on here. I had already drawn, blocked in where I was going to apply different colors, kind of like a little road map to start me off. So I'm going to apply this color as like a base color, and then I'm going to somewhat embellish it with other colors, because that's half the fun with pastel. I mean, I can paint a blue sky blue all day long, but what I can also do with pastel is I can put in other colors as long as they're the same value. Now notice this paper has a little bit of a crease in it. I'm dirtying it with my fingers, but I should be able to work over that. Okay, so now I've got a nice basic sky blue in there, but that's just not enough. I kind of like to jazz it up a little bit. So let's see what other colors I can throw in here to make it more interesting. Down near the horizon, I can put in a little bit of purple. I hope you guys are picking this up, because I know in videos you can't always see everything. Although, also in video, you're actually kind of like right on top of where I'm working, more so than if I were doing this in person. Throw a little of that purple in there. Again, this is roughly the same value as that blue. Very close in value. Now let's see, what else do I have here? Ooh, I have some pink. It's a very light shade of pink. Now, it's a cool pink. My pastels get really dirty really fast because they rub up against each other, and the color transfers from one stick to the next. I don't really have a problem with it, because as I go over the paper, most of that random color rubs right off onto the paper. I hope it makes it more interesting, but maybe it's just wishful thinking on my part. Okay, so now that gives that sky kind of a glow. I like that. Let me put some down. I'm going to make it go right into some of the tree line, because some of the sky would ordinarily show through. I think up in that sky, I'm going to put in a richer, darker blue, just just because. As you look up in the sky, you'll notice the sky becomes a richer, more intense blue, excuse me, up directly overhead. And although this area is not directly over your head, it's just, you know, just a good place to put in some more color. Some of those rich colors we were talking about. So that makes for an interesting sky. I kind of like that. I have some awesome colors here, which are, again, I think these are Terry Ludwig's. This might be a little too intense, but I have others in here. Let's see. I'm kind of looking for a greenish blue. I don't know. This might be it. Let's see. It's pretty light, but you know what? I'm okay with that. And let's pretend for just a second that I make a mistake. Let's go back to this one that I think is too dark, because I think it is. What if I do that? Ooh, I kind of like that. Can I incorporate? The question becomes then, can I incorporate that kind of greenish turquoisey color in here? I probably can. It might make for a very interesting technique or feel up in the sky. Ooh, kind of like it. I don't know. I have to think about that. and that's, I might have to tone it down. That's really what I'm thinking. Because although it's really nice, it's a little intense. So I can just gently just take my other pastel. This is the original blue I started with. And just gently kind of go over it. And that blends it in. I never blend with my fingers. My fingers would be raw if I did, because this paper is so rough. However, I can take another stick and use that to blend. And I do. That's how I go about blending. You know, when I was I don't want to say a kid, but a younger artist, I understood that you had to blend pastels. And you kind of do, but I would never blend it to the point of losing the luminosity that you get from each individual stick of color. I really like that. Let me tip this a little bit so you can see it better. There you go. I'm sorry. I didn't realize that that part of the sky was not being seen in the camera. Let me back out a little bit. Okay. So now you get a better idea of what's going on with that sky. So if I zoom right into it, let me see if you can see that. There you can see there's pinks, purple, blues, and a green. And they work for the sky, whoops, because they are all the same value. And that's like my mantra. My students will hear me say this over and over and over again, because it's value that is the key. It's not color. And I must tell you, with all these pastels that I have here, color can be very, very seductive. So, all right, let's get some color down here. Speaking of color, we'll get some colors down here. I want to get something here into this tree, because the tree is just, you know, it's a huge presence in this. Yesterday I was working on a pastel that really did not work out. So I have some of my colors in the wrong spot, but let me just put them right here where they belong. Okay. All right. So this is just kind of a middle of the road kind of a green. It's a little dark, but I need something dark. I got a lot of shadowy areas here. So I'm just going to kind of dance my pastel across the surface of this paper. Hear that scratchy noise? That fills me with such joy. I love the sound of pastel. And happy artists when we're creating. Alright, so let me put a little of this up closer to the sky and perhaps into the sky. Here we go. There were some really cool marks there from where the alcohol liquefied the pastel, but I suspect I will just go right over them because, you know, that's just what I do. All right, this green is a lighter green, so I'm working darkest to lightest. I'm like the opposite of watercolor painters who are trying to reserve those whites. I'm trying to go the other way. Okay, so I'm putting in some more of these lighter values. And you see how these darker colors stand out? I could not, under any circumstances, do this the other way around. In other words, I couldn't start with the lightest values and go darker. It's just not going to look right. It's not going to have the richness that it would having the darks down there first. So I like to keep things kind of loose. I don't want to put in too much detail at this point. I have a long, long way to go with this. But let me just get to a little bit lighter value of pastel. This is kind of a grade green. And so I'm just applying it kind of right on top of some of the other colors. And by doing so, I'm creating brand new colors. But you can see that this is starting to look more and more like a tree. So with the nice soft leafy edges. There we go. And I don't go under, I know there's an artist, I can't remember the lady's name, who is very directional with her strokes, and I'm not that person. I kind of like to go all over it in all sorts of different directions. I also, oh gosh, I took a workshop years ago from, what is his name? I can't remember his name. It'll come to me. And he said, put a zing in your painting. And I'm like, zing, what is that? He says, a little sparkle, something to really catch someone's eye. And although I don't do this very often, I'm going to do it today. So what I'm really doing is I'm taking this kind of a, it's almost a chartreuse, and I'm putting little bits of this color in to draw your eye into that particular part of the tree. I'm not going to do it over the whole thing though, because I don't, that would be overkill. Just a little bit. Now that is looking like a line. I have to somehow or other correct that. There. I might even take it up a notch higher and put in something a little bit more yellow, you know, and just keep working it a little bit. It's not even yellow enough. How about, ooh, how about this yellow? Look at this yellow. Oh my goodness, this is a big chunk of yellow. And there's my dog. He doesn't understand that he's not allowed in here. So anyway, I might have to let him in anyway, just because he'll just annoy us all to death. So anyway, I might play around with this a little bit. I might not. And I have this cool green. It is just the most obnoxious color green. And I just love to use it very sparingly, just a little bit here and there to liven up an area. So that's how we build a tree. One of the things I like to do with a tree is I like to put in the sky holes that make it so lively. And I will put a few of those in here and there. The thing to keep in mind with sky holes is this. You have to use a color of the sky. Like in this case, I'm using blue. But it's got to be slightly darker than the background color. Just a tiny, tiny bit. Because if you don't, they're going to stick out like sore thumbs and look not quite real. So, okay, you know what? Let me just get rid of that altogether. I don't know. So let me just do a little bit more of this. A little bit. I might let my dog in just because he is just so annoying. So, hang on. I'm going to pause this for just a second. No, I'm not either, because then it'll shut down. Hang on, I'll let the dog in. Okay, so now comes another challenge, is trying to keep them away from my table here. Okay, I want to get some of those tree trunks in here to kind of help me to define what I'm looking at. I've gone back to this kind of a black. And I don't like to put a lot in there, and I don't like to be very heavy-handed with it because I'm not really seeing these tree trunky kind of things. Just little bits of them here and there. Okay, and you know what? Just put a little extra shadow color in here. Okay, so I'm happy with where that is right at the moment. I may change it as time goes on. Alright, I want to try to work in the background and in the foreground. I'm not sure how we're doing on time, but if I have to speed up the video, it'll just be kind of funny, and we will see how that goes. This is a blue. This is really dark blue. And I like it because, I don't know why, it's just a good color for the background, you know, because off in the distance, those trees are not going to be nice and green. They're going to look kind of blue. some in here. And if you notice how I'm applying this, I'm putting it down closer to the bottom and I'm pulling up into the sky area to give you the impression that the trees are leafy and not solid. And I may change that. We'll see. I'm not going to do anything else to that right at the moment. I want to get some of these colors in here because I think that it makes it make more sense to do that. Again, this is kind of a green. I don't even know. Oh, it's a bluish green. That's not what I expected. I kind of like it. Sometimes for me, it's kind of a surprise because they're so dirty. It's like, whoa, that's not what I expected at all. Well, I kind of like that though. All right, but as I look at my sketch that I did, as well as the photo, let's go back to the photo for just a second. That particular part of the grassy area down here is pretty light in value. So I may have to make sure that my painting is just as light in that area. Let me that there. All right, so I'm going to look for a lighter green, or maybe not. Maybe, well, you know what? I'm looking for yellow, but really what I'm seeing as I look at the photo is it's kind of pink. There's a little bit of a pinkishness to it. I suspect, well, it's probably not very pink, but it's okay. I suspect that maybe the grasses had some flowers on them or something to give them that kind of a pinkish cast. And although this is not really the pink I'm looking for, I don't really have a problem with it, okay? Because I know that I can change it. So let's do that. Let's do that right this minute. Let's see. I think what I want really is like a purple. This is a very pale purple. And by going over it with this color, it's neutralizing that very strong pink. It's bringing up the value higher, and I can correct it that way. The thing with pastel is you can correct it so easily. I usually check my colors on the tape up there. It's just way too dark. Let's see what we have here. This is more the color I'm looking for. This is a kind of a pink, but it's got some brown in it too. I'm just going to throw a little of that in there to neutralize some of that green and the purple. So, as you can see, I'm not using the colors that I naturally see in the photo. I'm kind of just winging it. And I kind of like that. With that being said, I don't just go random and stuff. I use a lot of different, the colors that I actually see in the scenery. I use those particular colors, but I'm not a slave to them. Okay, so now I've got this, and I like it, but I really want to get some more greens in there. Just green as can be. Let me look around here. I swear, as many times as I paint and use these pastels, I never have exactly the colors I need. I never have enough pastels. Why? Why don't I? I don't know. I love going to Rochester Art Supply and all the other art supply places. That is like my favorite thing in the whole world. Okay, this is a green, kind of almost like a light mint green almost. And I'm going over that. Now, if you think of color theory, what is red and green going to make? It's going to make kind of a brown. So let's see. But this is layering color on color, so that's a little different. But some of those pinks and stuff are still going to show through. I could, I suppose, just really work hard to cover it up all together, but I don't really want to do that. Okay, so I'm at a point now where I have to do something with the kind of shadowy areas. I do like this. I don't know. It's kind of, I don't even know what the color to call that. It really is a pretty weird color. That's not a bad thing. It's just a thing. Okay, this is a harder pastel. It's made by Faber-Castell. But anyway, it's just a... And I'm not using this for any particular reason. Not using a harder pastel because, ooh, I need a hard pastel. I'm using it primarily because that's the color I'm looking for. And that's how I do that. I don't necessarily think in terms of, I need a soft pastel. I need a hard pastel. I don't. I'm just looking for color at this point in my life. I have so many different colors. It's kind of crazy. That's too blue. I don't really want that. And it's funny because some of these pastels are almost like little friends to me because I know them very well. Maybe I'm spending a little too much time in the studio. I don't know. Okay. Put a little bit of this rich green. And even though I'm going over this with a variety of pastels, do you see how that dark is still there? That random darkness? It's cool. That just gives me, it makes it a lot easier for me to create like a sense of, what am I trying to say? Like there's a shadowy area there. And so that works well for this kind of thing. This is a great color. This is kind of a grayed down green, and I can throw a little of this up here. You know, so I'm building color on color. I'm not just satisfied with one color. You know, I have to admire you oil painters out there, because you go out there and you mix the colors and everything. I don't do that. I don't think I could at this point in my life. I would have a very tough time trying to mix colors. I wouldn't even know where to begin, honestly. But I think it's a cool process. I just don't have to, you know, because basically I'm kind of lazy apparently. So I just pick up my pastels and I got everything I need. Okay, so kind of neutralizing this again. Kind of, I don't know. I kind of like that right the way it is. It looks like sunshine to me on the grass. Now the thing that's throwing me off is this lightness back here. That is so much lighter than the foreground. And I have to do something to tone it down. I can put in, you know, just a kind of a mid-value green, and I think I will. It doesn't have to be anything special, but I have to get something in there to have this make sense to me. Because right now it's a little confusing, really. Gee whiz, I'm not sure where I am with time with this. Okay. So now I've got that value in too. And so now it sort of kind of comes together and makes more sense. In the actual photo, this is about the same value as the foreground. I think this is a little lighter, so this reads okay. The problem I have right at the moment is I want to do something with all these, I don't know, shrubby things here in the foreground. Like I don't know what that is, probably grapevines. Grapevines run rampant around here. And let's see now. I kind of like that color, really. I really think that this is a good color for these bunches of weird things that are growing. And I don't want to cover up the black, because I think that black really adds texture as well as a certain sense of depth, you know, like shadowy areas. But at the same time, I kind of like that. All right, so there we are. So anyway, this is how I would go about this. I think I am probably out of time, honestly. What I'd like to do, because I really don't have time to work on this any further. However, I would like to take the time to work on it over the next week or so, and maybe by the time our demo comes about, I'll have this completed. I might not, but it's worth a try. So anyway, thank you very much to the Penfield Art Association. I've enjoyed this evening. I have struggled to get this to work. And I'm hoping that everything looks good. And thank you again. Again, my name is Colette Savage. I do offer art lessons if you're interested in pastel. And thank you again. Bye-bye.